It was the moment no one in Hollywood or the internet saw coming. When Blake Lively, once known for her polished charm and Golden Girl reputation, turned her legal firepower toward independent content creators, it shocked even her closest defenders. The glamorous actress, beloved by mainstream media and long associated with wholesome family values, suddenly stood at the center of an increasingly messy and very public battle involving subpoenas, free speech, and social backlash. And while this began as a legal fight between Lively and actor-director Justin Baldoni, what's become even more explosive is how Lively's legal team expanded their strategy, pulling in online voices, critics, and creators and forcing them into the crosshairs. Was it a tactical legal move or a PR catastrophe waiting to happen, from reactions across YouTube and TikTok to independent journalists speaking out to fans, now questioning everything they thought they knew about Blake Lively? This drama has spun far beyond a simple court case. The question now isn't just whether Blake will win her legal battle, it's whether she's already lost the battle for public opinion. In this full breakdown, we're diving deep into the timeline, the legal maneuvers, the public outrage, and the shocking consequences of a once celebrated star's attempt to silence the internet, and how that attempt may have backfired in ways no one could have predicted. Let's get into it. There was a time when Blake Lively could do no wrong. For almost 2 decades, she was the embodiment of Hollywood elegance, a face of charm, a voice of grace, and a personality that rarely, if ever, invited controversy. Her rise to fame through Gossip Girl wasn't just about a TV show. It marked the beginning of a carefully curated public persona. Blake wasn't just an actress, she became a symbol. She represented style, glamour, family values, and the fantasy of a well-manicured life. Whether she was dazzling on the red carpet, charming audiences in films, or sharing adorable moments with Ryan Reynolds on social media, she was one of the few celebrities who seemed untouchable. But all of that seemed like a distant memory now, because in a move that no one, not even her staunchest defenders, expected, Blake Lively's legal team took a drastic turn. What began as a professional dispute with actor-director Justin Baldoni suddenly evolved into a much wider, much messier situation. Her legal team expanded its focus beyond the central conflict and started targeting independent online creators. Yes, YouTubers, TikTokers, and podcasters began receiving subpoenas. And just like that, Blake's name wasn't trending for a new film or fashion line. She was now the center of a cultural controversy that many argue she walked right into herself. For years, her image had been almost surgically controlled. Unlike other celebrities, Blake never found herself caught up in messy scandals or feuds. She kept her public life poised and polished. She rarely posted anything divisive or controversial. And when she did step into the spotlight, it was usually on her own terms. Fashion campaigns, motherhood interviews, lighthearted social media moments with Ryan Reynolds. Her brand was safe, warm, and deeply curated. But now that very curation is being re-examined under a different lens. What we're witnessing isn't just a celebrity facing a lawsuit, we're watching a complete transformation of public perception. Once seen as the golden girl of the entertainment world, Blake Lively is suddenly being viewed as a figure of power, using legal means to silence smaller independent voices. And that shift from admired to accused is happening fast. To understand the full scope of this fallout, we have to go back to where it all started, her legal battle with Justin Baldoni. Initially, their conflict didn't grab much public attention. Court battles between celebrities aren't new, and many are settled privately, before the media even catches wind. But this case was different. It involved complicated allegations of defamation, behind-the-scenes deals, and a bitter breakdown between 2 high-profile figures. The drama might have stayed under the radar if not for a single turning point, when court documents began circulating showing that Lively's legal team was issuing subpoenas, not just to those directly involved in the dispute, but to independent content creators who had merely commented on the situation online. Everything changed. The legal world understood the move. Subpoenas can be used to gather evidence or secure testimony. But in the digital world, it looked like something much worse. It looked like intimidation. It looked like a celebrity using her power and privilege to go after the little guy. And for many, that's when public sympathy evaporated. Because this wasn't just about Blake Lively anymore. It was about something bigger: free speech, fair use, and the growing divide between celebrities and the independent voices who comment on them. The backlash wasn't just legal, it was cultural. What struck a nerve was that these weren't traditional journalists or tabloid reporters. These were creators, people on YouTube and TikTok who built audiences around pop culture commentary, legal analysis, or celebrity news. For many fans, these creators are trusted voices, people who aren't filtered through Hollywood PR machines or beholden to corporate media interests. So when it looked like Blake Lively was trying to silence those very voices, the internet responded, and not in her favor. Suddenly, Blake wasn't being talked about as a victim defending her reputation. She was being painted as an aggressor. Headlines shifted. The tone on social media became colder. Fan pages began quietly going inactive. Subreddits and forums that once praised her style and projects started questioning her motives. And perhaps most damaging of all, major creators began publicly fighting back, explaining in videos and posts how they were being dragged into a legal nightmare simply for sharing their opinions or analyzing publicly available information. This wasn't just a reputational slip, it was a full-blown perception collapse. And it revealed something many fans had never considered. Before, Blake Lively's carefully maintained image might have been just that, an image. Behind the fashion shoots and charming interviews was a celebrity operating with the same ruthlessness, the same legal ferocity as many others in her tier of fame, and that realization stung. Blake Lively's entire career was built on being different. More refined, less reactive, more elegant. She didn't need to go after people online, that's what made her seem classy. But in 2025, that illusion has been shattered. And what's left is a growing public unease about just how far she's willing to go to maintain control of the narrative. And let's not forget, this all comes at a time when the public is increasingly skeptical of elite power. Whether it's celebrities, politicians, or CEOs, people are more aware than ever of how those in privileged positions use their influence. And when that influence crosses the line into censorship or control, the backlash is swift. In Blake's case, it's already underway. Now fans are asking questions they never thought they'd ask. Is this who Blake really is? Was the polished image all just a PR illusion? And if she's willing to go after content creators for merely discussing her case, what else is she willing to do? This isn't just a PR misstep. This could very well be the unraveling of an entire public persona. Whether intentionally or not, Blake Lively has entered into a cultural war, one where the battleground is public trust. And the weapons are no longer lawyers and contracts, but tweets, reaction videos, and viral hashtags. In the next section, we'll explore what happened when the subpoenas actually landed, who they targeted, how creators responded, and why Blake's legal strategy may have just backfired. In the most public way imaginable, the moment subpoenas started hitting inboxes, the internet lit up. What had previously felt like a niche legal dispute between two Hollywood names, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, suddenly exploded into a full-blown cultural moment. And not because of what was happening in court, but because of who was being pulled into it. When creators like Andy Signore, Candace Owens, and Perez Hilton revealed they were being subpoenaed as part of the legal proceedings, the reaction was immediate and intense. The subpoenas weren't vague. They were targeted, detailed, and very clear in what they wanted: communications files, commentary, essentially anything that could be related to what these creators had said about Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, or the case itself. To many, it felt like a direct attack on not just creators but independent expression. For the creators involved, this wasn't just another video topic, it was personal. Andy Signore, a longtime voice in the YouTube commentary world, took to his platform with a stunned, emotional tone. He wasn't just talking about the subpoena as a legal matter. He was talking about how it felt to be a single dad, an online commentator, and suddenly the target of a high-powered celebrity legal team. You could hear it in his voice: frustration, disbelief, and a deep concern about what this meant for others in his position. Candace Owens, never one to back down from controversy, responded with characteristic boldness. She accused Blake's legal team of overreach and warned of the dangerous precedent this kind of legal action could set. And Perez Hilton, a figure who has lived through the rise and fall of internet drama cycles for nearly 2 decades, simply looked exhausted. He admitted that even in all the celebrity mess he'd covered over the years, he'd never seen someone of Blake's stature go after creators in this way. And just like that, the narrative wasn't about why Blake was suing Justin Baldoni anymore. It was about how she was conducting that lawsuit and who she was dragging into it. For a generation that values decentralization and creator independence, this move felt like a slap in the face. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about facts or filings. It was about power, privilege, and the ongoing tension between Hollywood elites and digital voices. Twitter threads erupted. TikTok creators started stitching clips of each other reacting to the news. Reddit communities began dissecting the legal language in the subpoenas. The online world in real time began organizing around a singular idea: this isn't right. What many found especially galling was the timing. Blake's team didn't issue these subpoenas quietly. The filings were public, the creators were vocal, and the ripple effects were immediate. To the public, it looked like Blake, or at least her legal advisors, were trying to chill speech. To say, if you talk about this case, if you speculate, or analyze or criticize, you might end up in court too. It didn't take long for people to call it what they believed it was: an intimidation tactic. But here's where it gets even more interesting and far more dangerous for Blake's image. These creators weren't just influencers with ring lights and scripts. Many of them had backgrounds in journalism, media, or law. They weren't making wild, unfounded accusations. They were analyzing already public information from court filings, industry reports, and insider leaks. And more importantly, they were doing what creators do: reacting to what was already being said online. That distinction between creating false narratives versus responding to public stories became the focal point of Backlash. Legal experts weighed in, some suggesting that Blake's team may have overstepped, others defending the subpoenas as legally justified. But the general public didn't care about legal nuance. What they saw was a mega-rich celebrity going after everyday voices, and the optics were damning. One of the most striking developments during this period was the response from fans themselves. Blake Lively's own supporters began to fracture. Some defended her, insisting she had the right to protect herself and her reputation. But many others, especially longtime fans, expressed disappointment. In comment sections and quote tweets, phrases like "this isn't the Blake I admired," and "I didn't expect her to go this far," began appearing everywhere. Then came the video essays. YouTubers, even those not subpoenaed, began creating long-form content discussing the ethical implications of Blake's legal strategy. Legal breakdowns from creators like at @TedLawire and at @EmilydBaker took off in views, providing deeper context for what these subpoenas could mean, not just legally but culturally. The conclusion: this wasn't just about defamation, this was about controlling narrative, and the worst part, it didn't work. Instead of silencing creators, the subpoenas amplified their voices. Andy Signore's response video quickly became one of the most viewed on his channel. Candace Owens' clip was shared widely on X, gaining traction even among those who usually disagreed with her politics. Even creators with smaller audiences began gaining visibility simply by speaking out about how chilling the subpoenas felt. What Blake's legal team may not have anticipated was the internet's ability to rally around the underdog, especially when the underdog is a creator. With a webcam and nothing to lose, it was, as many dubbed it, the Streisand effect in real time. In attempting to control the narrative, Blake inadvertently made it go viral. Suddenly every corner of the internet was talking about it: legal, TikTok, drama, YouTube. Even traditional news outlets started picking up the story. Not necessarily because of its legal weight, but because of the moral questions it raised. When does a celebrity's right to defend their name infringe on a creator's right to discuss public matters? When does legal action become an act of censorship? The blowback didn't stop there. The creators weren't the only ones talking. Other celebrities started taking note, not always publicly, but quietly through unfollows, likes on critical posts, and subtle signals that said "we see this too." While no lister directly called Blake out, the silence from her famous friends, including Taylor Swift, who has always been outspoken about artist control, was noticed. It was almost as if no one wanted to stand too close to the fire, now engulfing Blake's carefully built persona. And perhaps that's the most telling part of this entire mess. In a world where social capital is everything, the quiet distance being kept by other celebrities says a lot. Blake's brand has long depended on her associations with Ryan Reynolds, with fashion houses, with her inner circle of famous, respected peers. But in the wake of the subpoena scandal, those connections suddenly feel more fragile. The whispers have begun: will this affect her endorsements? Will it cost her future roles? What makes this situation even more unprecedented is how fast it's moving. Celebrity scandals used to unfold over months. This one has evolved in a matter of weeks, with receipts, reaction videos, and real-time commentary shaping the story faster than any publicist can keep up. And through it all, one truth has become inescapable: by targeting content creators, Blake Lively may have stepped into a fight she was never prepared to win. Because the courtroom isn't the only place where reputations are decided. In the digital age, the court of public opinion can be just as powerful and far more permanent. As the backlash grows, as creators continue to speak out, and as fans reassess the star they once admired, one thing has become very clear: the subpoenas didn't just disrupt a lawsuit. They ignited a movement, and now the internet is watching very, very closely. As the backlash surrounding the subpoenas intensified, something subtle but significant began to shift. The tone of media coverage changed. What had initially been cautious reporting, sticking to courtroom updates and legal filings, started to show cracks. Headlines were no longer sterile and neutral. Instead, they began to pose real, uncomfortable questions: is Blake Lively abusing her power? Why are content creators being dragged into this case? Is this a PR disaster in the making? The moment the mainstream press started asking those questions, it became clear that this situation was no longer confined to online drama channels and YouTube law commentators. Blake Lively had officially lost control of the narrative. At first, it was mostly the digital press picking up on the controversy. Entertainment blogs like Pop Crave, BuzzFeed, and Insider started running coverage that focused not just on the lawsuit but on the creators being subpoenaed. Articles quoted Andy Signore and Candace Owens directly framing their legal involvement as a cultural flashpoint. The headlines spoke volumes not just about the case but about the optics. Words like bullying, silencing, and backlash began popping up in coverage that just a few months earlier would have celebrated Lively's latest fashion campaign. Then came the commentary from legacy outlets. The Hollywood Reporter ran a piece that subtly questioned the wisdom of Lively's legal strategy. Variety noted the unusual decision to target digital creators and how that move might backfire, not legally but socially. Even Deadline, typically focused on studio contracts and industry moves, published a short but sharp piece quoting unnamed insiders questioning whether Lively's legal team was acting with her full awareness or possibly putting her in a worse position. The implication was clear: even the Hollywood machine was getting nervous. For a celebrity like Blake Lively, someone who has built her career through meticulous image management and strong industry relationships, the press turning cold is dangerous. Reputation in Hollywood doesn't just come from talent or box office numbers, it comes from perception, from staying likable, from being seen as in control but not controlling. When you lose that perception, the consequences are swift. One of the most telling moments came when Blake was noticeably absent from two major upcoming magazine covers she had previously been expected to appear on. While no publication publicly stated she was pulled due to the subpoena scandal, the timing was hard to ignore. Rumors began swirling that brand partnerships were on pause. A fragrance campaign was reportedly delayed. And while Lively's team remained publicly silent, the behind-the-scenes whisper network was loud. It didn't help that other celebrities remained silent as well. Fans waited for public support, a tweet, an Instagram story, a statement. But it never came. Not from Taylor Swift, not from Gigi Hadid, not even from Ryan Reynolds. The silence became louder than any official response. In a world where celebrity friendships are often performed through social media, silence is its own statement. People noticed, and they began asking, why isn't anyone standing up for her? That question became even more poignant as other stars began subtly distancing themselves. Followers noticed changes on Instagram. A list: friends were no longer liking her posts, some even unfollowed her altogether. An unspoken Hollywood code for we're not getting involved in this mess. The lack of visible support only fueled the firestorm. The shift wasn't just happening in the entertainment press. Public relations experts began weighing in, and their assessments were in it kind. One PR strategist told Insider that Lively's team had made a devastating miscalculation by targeting creators. Another called the subpoenas a tactical error that transformed a manageable narrative into a brand-level threat. A third described the situation as a textbook example of how not to handle digital commentary in the age of decentralized media. That last phrase is key. Decentralized media. In the old days, celebrities could rely on gatekeeping. Publicists worked hand in hand with reporters, scandals were buried, and media cycles were easily managed. But in 2025, the ecosystem is different. Everyone with a microphone and a smartphone is part of the media. YouTubers, podcasters, TikTok creators, they're not fringe anymore, they are the conversation. And trying to suppress that conversation is like trying to hold back a tidal wave with a cocktail umbrella. Blake Lively, for all her experience and polish, may not have fully understood that. Or worse, she did and underestimated the backlash. There's an old saying in PR: if you don't tell your story, someone else will. In this case, by letting the subpoena controversy unfold without any meaningful public response, Blake ceded control of her narrative to everyone else: creators, commentators, and critics. And once they took hold of the story, they ran with it. Creators began uploading video essays with titles like "The Fall of Blake Lively: Why the Internet is Turning on Blake" and "Hollywood's Dangerous War on Commentary." These weren't fringe uploads. Some of these videos garnered millions of views, with thousands of comments echoing the same sentiment: this doesn't feel right. More importantly, these creators weren't attacking Blake's character, they were analyzing strategy, her team's actions, the legal implications, and the bigger cultural impact. That distinction matters because it proves this wasn't a smear campaign. It was a reaction, a legitimate response to a celebrity misstep that was never properly addressed. And in the absence of any apology or explanation, the perception kept spiraling downward. The question that began surfacing more and more was one Blake Lively's team likely feared. What is she trying to hide when you subpoena critics instead of countering them? With facts, people assume there's something to protect. When you drag small creators into legal proceedings instead of correcting the record publicly, people assume you're afraid of the truth. It doesn't matter if that's actually the case. Perception is everything, and right now the perception isn't good. This entire controversy also opened up a bigger conversation about celebrity power and accountability. For years, Hollywood stars have been able to shield themselves from digital criticism using legal tools, cease and desist letters, copyright strikes, vague legal threats. But this case felt different. This wasn't just about protecting intellectual property or preventing slander. This was about targeting creators who were doing what millions do every day, talking about celebrities online. So when fans saw those creators being dragged into courtrooms and deposition threats, it felt deeply personal. It wasn't just Blake Lively versus a few YouTubers. It became a metaphor, a symbol, a reflection of the power imbalance between the mainstream and the independent. And people chose sides quickly. The worst part for Blake's brand, even people who didn't follow the lawsuit or know the details began to sense something was off. That's when you know the damage has reached a deeper level. It's not just the commentary anymore, it's the vibe, a shift in how people feel about you. And once that happens, it's incredibly difficult to reverse. This isn't just a PR misfire. It's a full-blown reputational crisis. What remains to be seen is whether the Hollywood system, the agents, managers, brand partners, and industry executives will continue standing behind her. For now, there's hesitation. Conversations behind closed doors are happening. Contingency plans are being drawn. Crisis consultants are likely involved already, and Blake's team may be weighing whether to issue a public statement, drop the subpoenas, or quietly settle behind the scenes. But whatever they decide, the reality remains: the damage is done. And it wasn't caused by a tabloid scandal, a leaked tape, or a public breakdown. It was caused by strategy, by trying to suppress narrative rather than engage with it, by trying to control a digital world that simply refuses to be controlled. Blake Lively has learned, perhaps too late, that the internet doesn't forget. And when you go after the voices that speak to the people speak louder. As the dust begins to settle around the escalating drama involving Blake Lively and the subpoenas reportedly issued to content creators, a much larger question lingers in the public discourse. Has Blake Lively irreparably damaged her carefully curated image? What once was an untouchable aura of elegance, philanthropy, and Hollywood grace has now become entangled in controversy, legal overreach, and public skepticism. While Lively may not have broken any laws, the court of public opinion doesn't operate on statutes. It runs on perception, transparency, and trust. And at this moment, that perception is shaky at best. This saga isn't just about legal filings or online discourse. It's about how a single miscalculated move can shift the narrative for a public figure who's spent years building a brand rooted in relatability and class. The moment Blake's legal team initiated legal pressure on independent journalists and content creators, some of whom are known for simply offering commentary or criticism, it sent a ripple through Hollywood and social media alike. Suddenly, she wasn't just a celebrity actress involved in a court case. She was now perceived as someone willing to use her influence and power to silence voices that challenged her narrative. The controversy has peeled back the curtain on how some celebrities interact with digital commentary, especially when the internet acts as both a microscope and megaphone. People are no longer just digesting glossy red carpet photos or curated Instagram posts. They're engaging with long-form content, commentary channels, legal experts on YouTube, and independent creators on TikTok and X. So when someone attempts to curtail those voices, it's not just about suppressing a rumor. It becomes a fight against the freedom of interpretation and public participation in discourse. Blake Lively's decision, or her legal team's strategy to pursue subpoenas, has raised troubling ethical questions. It gives the impression that dissent or critical analysis is intolerable if it's not flattering, and that precedent can easily alienate the very fans and casual followers who once adored her. Even if she was advised by lawyers to pursue this course of action, the optics remain: a multi-millionaire celebrity targeting people with a fraction of her platform and resources. Furthermore, it's crucial to understand that content creators today are not fringe commentators. They are the new media. The public values their perspectives because they often offer what traditional press doesn't: unfiltered, passionate, and diverse commentary. By targeting them, Blake didn't just poke at a few creators, she may have antagonized an entire digital ecosystem. Whether this image fracture is permanent or temporary depends on what comes next. Will she address the controversy directly? Will she backtrack and show empathy to those she inadvertently harmed through aggressive legal action, or will she double down and isolate herself further from a once supportive audience? Her choices in the weeks ahead will be pivotal. Ultimately, the lesson here is clear. In today's hyper-connected age, image isn't just managed by PR teams, it's upheld by mutual respect between public figures and the audiences who engage with them. For Blake Lively, that relationship may now require serious repair, and whether she can rebuild that bridge or whether it's already burned remains to be seen.